Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko says the leader of the Russian mercenary group Wagner Yevgeny Prighozin has gone back to Russia. Lukashenko brokered a deal to end an attempted mutiny in Russia. The Belarusian leader revealed that on June 27, Prigozhin had arrived in Minsk as part of the deal that defused the crisis. Wagner leader Prigozhin's whereabouts has been a source of mystery for some time following the failed mutiny in Russia. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has broken his silence and stated that Prigozhin is back in St. Petersburg in Russia. Lukashenko has been key in ending the attempted mutiny against Russian President Vladimir Putin's administration. Last week, the Belarusian leader pleaded with Putin not to wipe out Prigozhin. He further says he doesn't see Wagner's presence in Minsk as a risk and of course, Lukashenko doesn't believe that the mercenary group would ever take up arms against his country. For the latest now, we cross to our reporter, Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow. Thank you so much for your time, Dasha, this afternoon. So talk to us really about the mystery that does surround Wagner and, of course, his whereabouts.
Well, indeed, we have heard today from the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, suggesting that Yevgeny Prighozhin, who was supposed to go to exile to Belarus, is no longer in Belarus. He was instead in St. Petersburg, and Lukashenko suggested that Prigozhin could take his plane and be in Moscow now or elsewhere within the Russian Federation. He said that Prigozhin was a free man and the Russian president would not be following him. The Kremlin has also confirmed that they are not tracking the whereabouts of Yevgeny Prigozhin. The spokesperson for the Russian president has suggested that the Kremlin has neither the desire nor the capability to do so. So what we understand is that Prigozhin is now in Russia. His fighters have been suggested several military compounds that have been abandoned in Belarus to permanently station there. But as we have heard from Lukashenko, the group has different vision, as Lukashenko has described that. So we understand that those fighters who have supported Yevgeny Prigozhin are still in their permanent camps, and that is in the Lugansk People's Republic, where they have been since their pullout from Bakhmut, where the operation has lasted for months. And the idea is that those fighters could still go to Belarus should they be willing to do so, or sign contracts with Russia's Ministry of Defense should they be willing to join the ongoing special military operation in Ukraine. Now, if in Belarus, Lukashenko suggested those fighters could actually benefit the Belarusian army. He said there was one condition for those fighters: should there be any external threat to Belarus, then these fighters will have to defend Belarus. But anyway, he said the suggestion and the offer was still on the table, and the fighters could still take that if they decide to do so.
And not just staying on with Lukashenko's role. I mean, one of the things that he is pleading with the Russian president, saying that Putin should not wipe out Prigozhin. And I mean, now that we've established that he is possibly in the line of fire, what role then does Lukashenko have to play further on this?
Well, as we have heard before, Lukashenko said he was the one who stepped in, who suggested his mediation efforts in the armed rebellion by Yevgeny Prigozhin on the 24th of June. When he stepped into those talks, the idea was that Lukashenko knows Prigozhin for over 20 years, and Prigozhin was refusing to talk to the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. Now, the Belarusian president is saying that following that armed mutiny, the relations between Moscow and Minsk are growing even tighter. So he's suggesting that he's offering this sort of help to Russia, but in no way diminishing the role of Moscow. What we also understand is that Belarus would also benefit from that. And the further discussion on the relocation of these Wagner fighters will be discussed in a meeting between the Russian president and Belarusian president. The Kremlin has not confirmed the date so far, but that the contacts between the two are taking place relatively often. Also, Lukashenko has suggested that as he mediated this rebellion, he could also help in mediating the conflict between Moscow and Kiev, suggesting that Kiev should be engaging into the negotiations with Russia, saying that at the moment Russia could be at the negotiations table, but everything could change, he said, after the counteroffensive by the Ukrainian armed forces. He suggested that it's not clear whether Moscow will be interested in talking to Ukraine after this counteroffensive, and all eyes are on that, particularly in the West. He also suggested that the Kiev forces could actually embark on any bold idea, on any significant military push by NATO summit that is expected to take place early next week. And also he said that this military push could actually eventually destroy the Ukrainian army.
Dasha, just paint a picture for us in terms of what is currently going on the ground in Moscow, particularly given the uncertainty with the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Well, as we understand, on the ground in the area of the so-called military operation, Moscow is meticulously destroying the military infrastructure of Ukraine. The repeated briefings by the Russian Ministry of Defense keep telling us about more and more ammunition warehouses and more military equipment supplied from the Western countries being destroyed by the Russian high-precision weapons. At the same time, we also hear from the Russian Ministry of Defense of the repeated attempts by the Ukrainian armed forces to attack the Russian positions. This is the counteroffensive that has been declared by Kiev, and Moscow says they have been repelling all of those attacks. Now, most recently, we have heard about a strike in Lviv, and the sources from the Russian Ministry of Defense that have been quoted by the Russian news agencies, by state news agencies, suggest that Russia was aiming at the warehouses as well as the centers where the military have been trained in Lviv. So definitely what we understand is happening on the ground is the operation is ongoing, with Russia destroying the military capacities of Ukraine that are regularly supplied from the West.